I think the Chinese portion, Trump got ahead of himself. They jumped to, something they call conventional overmatch in terms of military capabilities, and that this will serve as the ultimate deterrent against China. Um, I mean, that's an important statement because it means that the United States isn't relying upon its nuclear deterrence to deter China. We're talking about conventional military power. But when I take a look at the number of ships that are produced by America per year in our shipyards and compare and contrast it to the number of ships that China's producing in their shipyards, um, I just wonder how we're going to get to conventional military overmatch when the Chinese are going to be able to grow, um, exponentially faster than we are. Um, I think there will be a lot of posturing, peace through strength kind of posturing. But the reality is that this is a situation that'll be resolved economically, and that, the state of the global economic health will largely influence how Trump postures vis-a-vis China. But I think there's a recognition in reading the national security strategy that the American and Chinese economies are, interwoven to the extent that a trade war is impractical and a real war would be suicidal. So I, I I think there was a lot of strong words put in there, but the next document that needs to be produced in this cycle of documents is I think it's the National Military Strategy of the United States, put out by the Department of Defense/War, depending on how you feel about these things. Um, and that document will, lay out the military priorities based upon it. It'd be interesting to see how the military um, divides its resources and prioritizes how it employs its resources, in the Pacific. What specifically is going to be asked of the military, and can the military, bring these resources to bear in a timely fashion, or are we talking, an extended period of time? Europe, the disengagement from Europe. What resources will be allocated to defense of the homeland of the Western Hemisphere. Um, this is the next, you know, step is to find out how this document plays out in terms of follow-on policy. But, you know, in the same thing with nuclear policy, we have to see how, how that shapes out.
My last question though is just how you see the possible drop-offs among the European states. That is, you mentioned that the EU, either the EU or Europe, is now considered to be an enemy, and well, it doesn't seem that it doesn't seem like an exaggeration, really. Again, I would encourage people to actually read this document, where the European leaders are referred to as being authoritarian, undemocratic, essentially crushing political opposition, media, and dissent. So it it does, and also when you add the aspect of seeking to cultivate opposition to reverse all of this, it well, it does come off as yeah, that this is now not just a drifting apart, but an actual possible confrontation. But Europe, no matter how much we talk about Europe as an entity, it's the EU itself has 27 member states, and for some like Hungary, they're under great pressure and being punished often by the EU, by the Germans. So there's going to be some drop-offs. You mentioned Poland, of course, that they have for good reasons. They want to have America. Well, they will favor America over, for example, the Germans. But how do you see this conflict between the EU and the United States? How would this affect the cohesion, you think, of Europe? Because it's not as if all of the European countries are going to stand up and let's de-invest from America. We'll stand together. We seem to be able to unite around a common hatred of Russia, but even there we seem to break up a little bit with Fico, Orban, going their own way. But to unite somehow against America, which the former EU foreign policy chief suggested, it doesn't seem likely.
No, again, if Europe tries to do this, it's the end of Europe, because as you said, there will not be consensus. Nations will peel away. There will be different points of view, and the United States will exploit all of these. Um, and we will exploit it to the detriment of Europe. But what will happen is Europe will fracture among a number of fault lines, and the United States will be in the business of picking friends and picking enemies. Um, and depends on which side of the fence you decide you want to be on. But I can guarantee you this outcome: that if you choose to go against America, you do so at your own detriment. There's not a single European nation that will confront the United States decisively and emerge victorious. The government that does that will not exist. We are very good at regime change. It's what we do. And if you don't think we can target European countries, then you don't know anything about our history in Europe. Ask the French, ask the Italians, ask the Germans, ask anybody. Um, the history of American covert and overt interference in the democratic processes of Europe is a long and storied one. And we will be more than happy. Every one of your capital cities has an American embassy in it. And you've allowed the United States to build up very large CIA stations in these respective embassies. What do you think they're there to do? To hold hands and sing Kumbaya? To be your friends? No, they are there to implement the policy directives given to them by the President of the United States. And one of the main things they do is political action. Um, and they will actively be undermining any government that dares vocalize opposition to Donald Trump and the government of the United States. So it's over. You picked the wrong enemy. We're not an outsider that doesn't know anything about you. We built you. We created you. We clothed you. We fed you. We taught you how to crawl, taught you how to walk, taught you how to run, taught you how to talk. Um, we There's not an aspect of European society that we aren't intimately familiar with and don't intimately control, either directly or indirectly. You picked the wrong enemy. You have zero ability to influence the United States. We have maximum opportunity to influence Europe. This is not a fight you want to fight, but if you do want to fight it, the outcome will be guaranteed. You will lose, and losing will not be pretty because we will collapse you. We will collapse you politically, and if you want to play the harder game, we'll collapse you economically. We will be the ruin of Europe if that's the game Europe wants to play.
Yeah, I remember I had a talk with Richard Sakwa and other academics, all on this podcast about 6 months ago, and it's more of a hypothetical question whether or not the political West might be coming to an end. But this is yeah, it's very hard to read this in a very different way if you see the sentiment now on both sides. So there has to be. I'm not sure what do you foresee as being what replaces the political West. Do we see a redefinition of the relationship and amicable divorce? Because the Europeans, we kind of made ourselves very dependent on U.S. technologies, industries, payment systems, and banks and security. This is going to be often if you're the adversary, be it China or Russia, you have the incentive to create a lot of strategic autonomy. Given that, with 80 years of such close relations, we made ourselves very dependent. So to go this strongly against the United States now, it does seem like a mistake. That is, you would need at least 10, 20 years to have some independence before you try to pull such a move, I think. But
Look, the United States, they made it clear their number one priority is security of the Western Hemisphere. And Europe's not part of the Western Hemisphere. You're a number three priority, and we view you in a negative fashion in this national security strategy. You are, in many ways, the enemy. To the extent that, Europe will be linked to America, again, there will be the haves and the have-nots. But the haves with those, I think Europe's future is to be a quasi-colonial enterprise of the United States. We will seek to divide and conquer, and we will bring certain nations under our umbrella, but it won't be a favorable relationship. You will be expected to buttress the dollar to help keep the dollar relevant globally. And that means that we will either seek to degrade the global impact of the euro or actually destroy the euro altogether and compel nation states to go back to national currencies. For many Europeans, this is unthinkable. All they know is the euro. All they know is the unified currency model. But you know, that model can't exist in a fractured Europe, and we have a deeply fractured Europe right now. And once the United States starts uh, picking, picking nation states off, I think that's what you're going to see. Europe is going to be a deeply divided continent, and there will be the haves and the have-nots. And the nations that stick with the United States you will not be as friends and equals. You will be as colonial subjects are to exist to help promote and further the American empire. Yeah, because we are becoming an empire. We're a Western Hemisphere empire. What do you think the Monroe Doctrine is? It's basically laying claim to an entire region um, as American controlled, American dominated, a subset of America. Whether we succeed or not, or whether even we deserve to succeed or not, it's not the point. I'm not for this. Well, I mean, I know a lot of Europeans are probably getting mad at me for saying what I'm saying, but I'm not for this. I'm for good relations between the United States and Europe. I would love to go back to the relationship that we enjoyed in the 1970s and 1980s. That was ideal. But Europe has decided to go a different way. And I'm just telling you honestly what I think the price will be of these decisions. That this isn't going to be business as usual. This is the classic fool around, find out motto. And, the United States will bring those in who further our interests, but we're not here to further your interests. Uh, and it's a very sad state of affairs. I don't want the United States invading Venezuela. I don't want us bullying Peru. I don't want us seeking the breakup of Canada. I don't want us illegally occupying Greenland or Panama Canal. I'm not for any of this, but I'm simply saying, as an analyst, this is the reality of America as you see it. Um, and it's probably going to prevail because there's nothing in this hemisphere that can stop us. Um, and Europe probably isn't going to survive this as it currently exists. This is going to be a bad century for Europe going forward.